Okay, we should be live.
All right, everyone. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back to What's the Tea with South Suburban Family Shelter. So I got some cool people on the screen with me today. Okay, so first we have myself, which of course I'm cool. So I'm Angie, and then we have Zach. So then we have Zach, and then we have Dr. Jones. Okay, and Dr. Jones is a restorative justice practitioner. She is the CEO and founder of the Purple Path. Okay, so we want to welcome you, Dr. Jones. Thank you so much. So we're about to dive in and hear more from Dr. Jones, but while you are waiting, please share to your social medias. Let your friends, let your family watch it. Send it to the teachers and the other school professionals that you know, because restorative justice is very, very, very necessary and important in the school systems. And then, of course, grab your tea. I don't have tea, but I have water. Gotta stay hydrated. So please get whatever you need to get you through this episode. So, Dr. Jones, how are you today?
I'm good. You want the honest truth? I've had better days. And I'm still smiling, but this is week 2 for us in terms of being back in person. And yeah, I'll go into that when the time is right. But I'm thankful I'm still alive, and I'm thankful to be here. So that's the great part.
Absolutely. I sure forget. Look, we're at home like, oh, you went back. Okay, tell us what. So, Dr. Jones, tell us more about Purple Path, your baby. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, that is my baby. So Purple Path really is all about the healing process through restorative justice and restorative practices. And to break it down even further in terms of layman terms, it's about that journey. You know, sometimes we think that when we have traumatic experiences that affect us, that if I was able to get through my traumatic experience in one particular way, we have this idea that it's a one-size-fits-all approach to healing, and it's not. And so what may affect me and impact the people around me may be totally different for another person, because it's really about, do you have the tangible and sustainable skills, tools, and resources to get through and navigate that process? And if you don't, you find yourself in a worse predicament than you were when you started. And so what does that healing journey look like? What does it look like to forgive yourself? What does that look like to forgive someone else, in spite of what outside forces may say, or what, you know, societal stigmas may say in terms of retaliation? What does that even look like from a spiritual perspective? And how have I been able to utilize my own personal journey to help model the way as how you can get through, even in terms of some of the most heinous and egregious situations, such as sexual assault and rape and homelessness and poverty mindset, and, you know, all these things that, you know, things that we can control and things that we can't. And so, especially for the things that we can't control, how do you forgive when it's not something that you can actually feel? You know, it's one thing when if Angela, if you harm me, I can touch you. Not saying I want to hem you up.
Right. Yeah.
But what does that look like when you can physically be in front of me and I can say, Angela, you know, this may not necessarily be for you, but for me, I have to let this go. And letting go looks like, and then you fill in the blank. But what if it's cancer? I can't touch cancer. What if it's this pandemic? What if it's COVID? I can't touch COVID. You know, so I can't touch a bullet, or I could, but what touching a bullet, what is that going to do, and what purpose does that serve if that bullet is the bullet that may have ended or harmed someone's life, right? So we really got to get to the gist of, what does that healing process look like for you?
Wow, that is interesting. It sounds like a lot of, you know, protective factors, risk factors, how this play a role into your healing journey as well. That is amazing. And, you know, that's really needed. Not saying it's not needed for adults, because it is as well, but especially for our young people as well, because, you know, there's a certain way the man should act. There's a certain way they should handle this situation. And if you don't, what does that look like? You know, so that's the whole man box situation as well. So it's a lot of different factors in that. Absolutely. So Zach, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to you first. I know he got some question for you.
I certainly do.
I wanted to start just real simple for people who may not know. Could you just give us an explanation of what restorative justice is or what restorative practices are?
Yeah, so I somewhat touched on that in my previous statement, but if I had to give restorative justice the simplest form of the definition is, there is a time where you will be harmed, you will be offended, you will be misunderstood, you will be uncomfortable, you will be placed in a predicament that you feel like you did not deserve. But for whatever that situation may be, depending on the situation at hand, the people who are involved in that process, whether they may have been deemed the offender or the victim. And, I try my best not to use criminal terminology when we're talking about being restorative, but for most people, they will understand when I say victim and offender. But if we were able to remove the labels and the titles that are associated to what society say people are based on the action that has occurred, then it's allowing people who have been impacted by that particular situation to come together in a peaceful and respectful manner. So it's not a matter of, it can't be mandated, especially when you talk about in schools. It has to be something that is explained to that person, and then they make that decision. And so that's another piece, like that empowering skill to help you think, from a critical perspective, to say, these are your options. And when you see the options that are in front of you, we can talk about zero tolerance policy, or we could talk about what punishment or the criminal justice system look like, or we could talk about what it is to be restorative and how can we best utilize this opportunity to provide a safe and brave space for those individuals who have been harmed by that particular situation to come together and say, speak from the heart with no judgment, be able to ask questions that you typically don't have the opportunity to ask. If you have been victimized or you have been harmed, you can ask the person who harmed you, were you the target? Why me? Not saying I wanted to be someone else, but how did we get here, and what happened to you that led, because it's always a backstory, and so when you think about restorative justice, it's not a one size fit all approach. It's not a program, it's a way of life. And it's saying that we all have been through some things in our life, and if we haven't gone through that healing process in a functional way, the way we operate, the way we respond, the way we act or interact with other people can be very toxic. And so what is it like to come together as one to speak about what it was, and what are some tools, skills, and resources that we can utilize, not just now, but moving forward, and what that follow-up process like, what does that consist of, so that we can make sure we hold each other accountable, that I hold myself accountable, that we build this relationship. And if that relationship means that it's just a matter of respecting each other and passing, it can be just that. It doesn't have to be the most significant kumbaya moment. What does that look like to build social capital? Understand that most times when we are in a process where it makes us uncomfortable, because it's easy to talk about all the things that go wrong in our lives, but what is it like to be solution oriented? And when you are solution oriented, most times the resources that are available to you are the people who are right there in that room. And that's how you build social capital and build relationships and build competencies, especially when something negative has occurred. How can we turn that negative action to something positive? And then what does that look like to involve community resources? We want to make sure that the people that have been impacted by a harm have the internal and external resources that are available to them that's conducive to meet the needs of what the issue is. Like, don't send me to give you an example. If I've had a situation where I was stealing because I lacked the basic necessities, or I didn't have the income, and you tell me, okay, well, now you have to pay this back. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a task that's going to pay the debt, but then you're going to find yourself in the same situation again, because now you got something to pay the debt, but what are you going to do to move forward? So you got to think more in terms of not just the situation at hand, but the situation at hand, and how can we best resolve that issue so that issue don't happen again. And so that's when we talk about community resources, and then community safety. That's it.
That is really amazing. I'm just sitting here like, really? Tell me. No, but this is very interesting. So I must ask, when you were growing up, and whether you've been, when you were growing up, were these resources, these programs, these leaders that were restorative justice practitioners, were they giving you these jewels that you're doing?
So I got great examples, even though restorative justice wasn't a term that was used when I was growing up. It was more like conflict resolution, or I'm just doing what I know to do.
Right.
So a lot of times you don't have a name for it. You're just doing the right thing because it's in your heart to do. So I remember, growing up, I was born and raised in Harvey World all day long. And so I went to Holmes Elementary School, 1st through 6th grade. Then I went to Brooks Middle School, 7th and 8th. And then I went to Thornwood High School, which is District 205, where I work full time now. And I've been there for almost the last 3 years now. And so that's empowering. But the thing I want to say is, to answer your question, is that I remember Mr. Philip Scooble. He was a Caucasian male, pretty much teaching in a predominantly Black school, but he was my go-to. Like, he knew the families, he knew who was what, he knew who belonged, who did not belong. He knew just by your posture if you were going to have a good day. He knew how to pull you aside and not, create havoc or make you feel like you're being intimidated or antagonized. He knew how to advocate for you, which he modeled the way so you could advocate for yourself. He would walk home with the students sometimes. He did a lot of things that he did not have to do. And I, to this day, like, kudos to Mr. Scooble. He was like my first example of what restorative justice really looked like if I had to go back and reflect on, my own educational experience. And then there was other individuals too who showed the total opposite, like very punitive, like, I don't care who you are. I don't care about the circumstances. I don't care about your backstory. Right. I don't care. This, the student handbook says that if this is the infraction, this is the amount of days you're going to get suspended. We see you when you come back. And when you come back, just go back to class. We haven't solved anything. We just removed it temporarily. So, yeah, right. I've seen both. So kudos to Mr. Scooble.
That is amazing. Yes. So what does a typical day look like for you as a coordinator of restorative justice? I was gonna say, run down your schedule now.
It is so because I'm the district coordinator, I pretty much go between buildings.
Hold on, wait, you said you a district coordinator. Yeah, okay. You gotta get your props. That's a lot.
It is. And so I pretty much oversee all of discipline, any assistant principal of discipline, any situations in terms of what can be done to make sure that that child, what are some proactive measures? Let's start there. How do we build those relationships? What are some bell ringers? What are some exit tickets? What is your posture? What is your tone? Helping teacher understand, like, what does it mean to provide the best customer service experience? And doing that by saying, I created a whole draft district-wide restorative justice plan that, along with 6 courses to go along with it throughout this current school year, to kind of like spoon feed educators this information, because a lot of times, we already in the midst of the pandemic, we see the numbers are going up. Just saw an email that just went out saying that, as of today, I think this shows that since January, this is like the worst day ever in COVID in 2021. With COVID cases. And so I do see us going back to remote learning. But what does that look like in terms of the training process? Because everybody's already overwhelmed. The level of anxiety is intensely high. And so being able to just come along them step by step throughout this school year and school years to come, to help them understand restorative justice from the foundation, the framework, the theoretical philosophy of it all, understanding life applications, customer service experiences, our posture, our tone, understanding trauma and empathy. What does that look like in the classroom? What does that look like to be able to build that relationship with the student who may be your most troubled student because of something that is happening? So how do you get to the bottom of that? Is being able to humanize the experience. And the first way to humanize a person's experience is by saying hello. How many times, even adults, how many times have we been in passing and we make eye contact, but it's like, you don't say nothing to me?
I don't say nothing
to you. You stay in your lane, I stay in my lane. And right. When it comes to education, every lane, my lane. So, I want to know what's going on in the community. I'm not trying to overstep my boundaries and say, I want to know what's going on in the home. But if I have a relationship with the parents, I get an idea. If I have a relationship with the guardians or the big brother, big sister, or even the support system that we typically might discourage from entering our school building because their big brother might be the one that running for the moles. Who knows, but if I can humanize your experience and not get, like, judgment for me is human nature. A lot of times our judgment can, judgment, intuition, your gut, it can save us. But at the same time, I'm always asking God to increase my spirit of discernment, to help me best determine how do I interact with each person I encounter, because I encountered them for a reason. And I don't see it as a mistake unless I don't have the skills, resources, and tools to make a conscious decision. Now, if I have those things in place, then it's not a mistake, it's a lesson to be learned. And it doesn't become a mistake until I willingly make the decision to not utilize the gifts and calling that God has given me to act accordingly. So I know
that's amazing, because this is really needed. No, seriously, and it's very needed because, Zach, it's like when we're talking about children exposure to violence, and how that really affects them. Or, you may have that one student A who just be cutting up. And instead, if I don't want to deal with it, Zach, go to the office. I don't even want to deal with it, instead of seeing, okay, what's going on with Zach today? Did Zach eat today? Did Zach have to walk to school, take a train? Like what was your day like up until now? Because as you said, we're we're coming across different people of different paths in every situation
of life.
Yes.
And that's why I was so happy you said it's not just one thing, it's a way of life, is what I believe you said. And being mindful of what kids are going through and having empathy for just all students. And I mean, there's thousands of students in District 205, and I'm sure everyone has their own story and what they're going through. So I was kind of wondering, like, are students, have they been open to this approach? You said you've been there for 3 years. Is it getting easier, or?
I won't even say it's getting easier. What it is that I find myself always having to fine tune to make sure that the language that I utilize is conducive to meet the language of the people that I'm serving. So immediately when I say RJ, that might sound too overbearing. It might sound misunderstood, and it sound like I'm still gonna get in trouble. It sound like this is not, like, I'm not about that life. I don't, I want to turn up. I don't want to be peaceful. So what is it, for me, it's a both and. So it's easier for me now in terms of being able, even for educators, sometimes like, I don't want to hear another initiative. I'm cool. So just being able to, for me, it's easier in a sense of picking up on how to address restorative justice by example than it is it's easier by example and application than it is by, just the book itself. And so modeling the way and normalizing the fact that in the midst of this pandemic, this is going to be the one tool that's going to get you through. And so, and then it's also easier in the sense of when you think about funding, school, Title IX, Title I, title, right? All these different funding mechanisms. When you have been able to show that you have something that is functional for your students and families, 9 times out of 10, the funding remains or increases opposed to decreases or being eliminated. So you have to make sure, like when I'm having conversations with administrators, my conversation is usually about money, unfortunately, but it starts with money. And then we can move on to talk about everything else. When I'm having conversations with teachers, it's about that classroom management. Like you have to get through X amount of lessons about X amount of time. And if you always have to focus on the behavior, then are you going to be able to, what's your review going to look like, right? When I'm talking to students and families, it's about when I'm talking to students, like, what is the plan? Do you want to be enrolled, enlisted, or employed when you get out of high school? Because what you fail to realize is that if you don't have a work ethic, then they have to go off academics and behavior. If you want to be employed, even if you want to be enlisted, even if you want to be enrolled, however you look at it, if you can think about the decisions you make today and how it's going to impact you today, tomorrow, and forevermore, then you might have a better idea of how to make better decisions. And then when you talk to parents, it's like, because I'm tired of getting phone calls about, Jimmy cutting up. I don't even answer the phone anymore because when I see the prefix of the phone number come up, I get a sense of anxiety. I'm sorry, I'm getting my phone. So it's like, it's a win-win for everyone, but you have to know how to have that conversation about restorative justice with each group of people. And even with the group, like on an individual basis, what does that look like? What are the benefits? Now, the downside of it is that you still have people that if their only way of life has been dysfunctional, and you show them a functional way, what end up happening is they see your functionality as dysfunctional and they think they're functional. So it's like, it's a work in progress, and it's time consuming. And sometimes, you can't win them all. So that's my response to that. But for me, it's been great. One of the silver linings of this pandemic is that the barriers that you have seen between individuals who represent a school or any form of education and home life, that the level of communication and comprehension has increased, because now we have to come together as a village. We have to redefine what the village look like if we want to see our children succeed in the midst of this pandemic, before, during, and after.
No, that's very, very true. And so I must ask, just listening to you, it is clear that you are a leader to many people. You do a lot in the community. And I just want to ask, because I'm also curious, you deal with conflict resolution all the time. How do you self-care? Like, is there any, like, how do you self-care? Because it's like advocates, or if you're an advocate and your work, what's that?
My passport. Yes. I'm glad you said that, because my direct supervisor, which, kudos to Brett Fickes too. He's the district director of curriculum and development. Okay. So he realizes that I take on quite a bit, even when my role, and that's the thing, like I said, I had to learn how to, set healthy boundaries and continuously reset them, because healthy boundaries before the pandemic look different than what they do now. And so, always reassessing where I am in that moment. Weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Wanda Parker, no shame in that. Mondays, my husband, so I work Monday through Friday full time, and then, I work every day basically.
I'm about to say, you don't stop working.
But like Mondays is dedicated, Monday from 4 p.m. up until Tuesday morning before I have to go in for work is dedicated to my husband, because that's the one day we both have off together. So it's like the kids know move around. I'm a mother of 5. I don't know if I mentioned that. And so that's been another thing that I look forward to every Monday. And it's not all about, all the things that you may think it might be about, but it's like going back to the basics of playing games, video games, card games, and him whipping my butt sometimes. And then, and I get in my feelings because I realize I'm very competitive, or cooking together. Another thing, like I said, in the midst of this pandemic, I went from being, I like really isolated myself and even falling in a sense of depression, and my anxiety had increased significantly. So being able to write down what my triggers are, like certain times it's like, I got to move around and everything is not for me and I'm not for everybody, so understanding that too, taking my bath with my Epsom salt and lighting my candles. I love candles. There's quite a few things I've increased during this pandemic. I love my lip gloss, I love my gym shoes, sometimes retail therapy, but I shop, but I don't overdo my part. I budget. Drinking my water with my lemon and lime and cucumber, meal prepping, all these things are my self-care. Yep.
Right. Good. I had, just had to ask, because I know sometimes when we're in a line of work, even in our line of work, it's like self-care. What does that look like? Or, we're teaching others about self-care, and then it's like, oh, well, how do you self-care? And we're like, hold please. Let me get back to you. So that's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
Do you have a favorite spot to vacation at?
It might sound odd, but I love Texas. I love Houston, Texas, and Galveston, Texas. And so between those two, like this year alone, I've been there twice. I love the turkey leg hut. They love me.
Oh yeah.
I don't have to stand in a long line because they think I'm dope. I think they dope too. Being by the water. I don't know how to swim, but just being by the water and hearing it is, yeah. So that right now, that's probably one of my favorite places. I went to Cabo, like the beginning of July. That was a beautiful experience. It was just me and one of my best girlfriends that I consider more like a sister. And it was amazing. No kids, no hubby, no,
Right.
like it, yeah. Like I didn't do anything crazy now, like this, show up on Snapchat or Instagram one day, but it was cool. It was relaxing and yeah.
So let me ask you, what, as far as your line of work, especially being in the, you're working in the same community that you grew up in, so what has been the most rewarding part about working with the students?
You want to know the truth?
Yeah.
I'm not a liar anyway, but sometimes I'm not sharing that. So before the pandemic, they had the Harvey always have their yearly parade right before school started, and that's probably one of the hugest events that Harvey has always been known for. So when you think about the Bud Billiken parade in terms of Chicago, that's what you would like compare it to if you had to think about the South suburbs. And I was the Grand Marshal in 2019. And if you go back, if we friends on social media and any social media outlet, there's a police officer that I took a picture with. That's the same police officer I had a fight with when I was 19. Like literally, we went to blows. And so when I talk to parents, most of the parents know me already. They're like, Dr. Shaniqua Jones, did you live? And I'm like, yeah, that's me.
There you go. We don't have to bring that up, but yeah, that was me.
The first question, like, what happened to your hair? You used to have a lot of hair. Like, yeah. So, I'm huge on being transparent about sharing my story. And so a lot of times people like, that was the officer you had to fight with. Because if you think about the severity of that situation, I would be dead if that had happened now. Right. But at the same time, when you have police officers, deans, anybody that was in an authoritative disciplinarian type of position, still alive and still in Harvey, like if you ever need to see how restorative justice has changed your life, I need you to follow Dr. Shaniqua Jones, because from like I had a humble beginning. I didn't have, like most times people want you to have the most craziest and dysfunctional situation to help them justify the reason why you act out. And I didn't have that. My mom was a minister. My dad was in my home, even though they separated when I was like 6. It wasn't something, if they had something happening, I had no clue. I was very naive. I was a church girl. I had 3 brothers. I had a lot of love, still do to this day, but it was me and decisions I made because of the environment I started involving myself and interacting with that had me out here real bad from the age of 15 to 26. And so what I love about it is that I don't change. I mean, I'm not going to be, I'm not ashamed of my story. I'm not guilty about anything I have done or even been through. But what I have been able to do is, like I said, my mantra, my life mantra is a journey not shared is a soul not healed. And so what I mean by that is I've been through some of the craziest situations. I've overcome a lot of different things in my life with the help of God. He gets all the glory for it, because I remember a time in my life I said God didn't exist because I was so lost. And to each his own, believe in whoever you're going to believe in, but for me it's God. And so what does that look like now at the age of 40 to be living and thriving with 5 children?
You don't even look 40. You said 20? You said 20?
My oldest is 22. She just walked in here to plug in my
really?
Yep, she's 22. I have 4 daughters and 1 son.
Oh, I know your son like help me.
He's in Louisiana. He's a junior at Xavier University. He's on a pre-med track. He's amazing. All my children are amazing in their own way. I don't have a favorite child, and I know that people behind closed doors, like I do have, but they all my favorite in different capacities. I know who I could call on for what, and I know who I can't call on, what the situation is. But yeah, my daughters are 14, 16, 17, and 22, and my son is 20.
That's amazing, because I know even with the work that you do, you could continuously have that bond and that relationship with your kids as well. So that's amazing.
But I'll be honest, there's some room for improvement, especially with this youngest child. Just say a prayer for her. Pray for us. I'm starting to see a lot of the things that I started to experience around her age, I'm starting to see in her. And I'm not sure if you are parents, but I know you have been parented, you know, because you've been someone's child. And so you can imagine what it's like. For me, it was my mom being a minister. So, you know, that pressure that comes along with having a parent that has a platform can be tedious. And at the same time, they can hear what the world is saying to them, but they can't hear what you're saying to them. So it's that's where I'm at right now with their youngest. And so, hey, if you got resources, and this is why I'm saying, like, I'm very open and honest. Like, I don't have all the answers, but what I do know, I know. And so I'm always like, hey guys, if you got some resources for this 14-year-old girl, let me know.
Well, you are doing such an amazing job. Zach, did you have any other questions?
I think that was it. Maybe we can check with Facebook and see if anyone had any questions there.
Yep. Celeste, are there any questions in the chat for us today?
We have a lot of comments. I was so into this tea episode that I failed to actually read all the comments. But I do want to say that I really want to quote like everything Dr. Jones is saying, because you are preaching and I love your passion. And I also want to say that I'm also from Harvey World.
What's up?
Look, I'm over here like Calumet City, TF North. That's where I mean,
it's cool. It's cool. I got love. Hey, 215. They cool too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I graduated from Thornton High School.
Yes. I was just there earlier today. Well, I'm everywhere.
Yeah. So you do have a lot of support in the comments. So you might want to check those out later. We have Letitia Elliott saying, hey sis,
that's
amazing.
That's my sister. She just texted me about something else. So she probably didn't know what's going on.
And then I see a question here. It says, Dr. Jones, you used the phrase social capital several times. Can you please speak to what that concept is?
Yes. So look at the four of us, even though you can't see Celeste. Angela, I know you have your strengths. Zach, I know you have your strengths. Celeste, I know you have your strengths. And then we all have needs for improvement. And so building social capital is saying like, Angela, what's your strength? Zach, what's your strength? Celeste, what's your strength? Doc, what's your strength? And let's build on that. And understand that too, that when we're building off the things that we know is our jam, that's our thing, or that's whatever it is, that's our passion. Then for the other things that may not be our passion, who's the go-to out of the four of us? Because this is the community. Like, even though we're online, this is an online community. For those who are listening, for those who are going to watch later, you're part of this community. And so what are your strengths and what are your assets? And then what do you need help in? Because a lot of times we always want to go all, over and beyond looking for help, and the help is right here. So what is it like to say like, hey, Zach, I don't know what skincare regimen you have, but it looked good. So share with the other men with the skincare regimen. I'm just giving you an example because I'm, what I'm saying, right? And then Angela, I love your tenacity. So for someone who may not they have a story to tell, but don't know how to tell it, like, hey, maybe Angela can help you work through that to get the confidence that you need so you can speak confidently, because it's one thing to have a story, but how do you share that story that's going to be able to be relatable and be received? Celeste, you good at tech. Hey, this pandemic, a lot of parents. I need y'all to turn that camera off. I just saw you walk past in the background. Like, oh my God, you just cursed the child out, Jesus. Right? Like, hey, Celeste might be able to help you to better understand what does this look like. Like, you might feel like that, this parent or this teacher is invading your privacy, but this is what online learning look like. And do you know the difference between Google Meet and Zoom and all these other different platforms? Do you know how to utilize it? Can you learn how to get more comfortable? Because how do you check behind a child online if you're not comfortable with looking online? So now the child just do whatever they want to do and you got to take their word for it, like all those different things. And that's how you build social capital, is saying that even in the people in your household, what does that look like? Like, I'm a mother of 5, my husband, we all have an entrepreneurial spirit. And so in the midst of this pandemic, my oldest daughter started her own skincare line called Sunflower Sugar Scrubs. My son started his own skincare line, making homemade soaps out of all these different organic oils and essential oils that they all been doing research on. I'm already an entrepreneur. Then my daughter, my youngest girl, the 14-year-old, she started Thank God for Grace, which was about, making cuticle oils to help her mom stop biting her nails. And now look how long my nails are, right? So, like, And then my two middle daughters, the 16 and 17-year-old, they do hair. They know how to do the locks and the faux locks and the braids and box braids and all the other, hairstyles that I don't even care about anymore, because guess what? I don't have to worry about that. So that's what building social capital is like, because hey, let's figure this thing out together.
And you gave a great example, because I was so like, okay, I don't want to see him like, girl, what's social capital? But now I understand. I get it.
Like when you look behind, like, let me see, I gotta look to, this is,
every time we in our SJJC meetings, I'd be like, oh, that background again. I'll just be like, yep, wow.
yeah, my daughter did this. My oldest daughter made that, and she did this for me because my favorite color, purple. I got everything you see is represented by someone I'm connected to.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So basically, no, is there any other questions or all comments and praises?
Yep, all comments and praises. No other questions so far.
Okay, so make sure you go check that out, Dr. Jones.
But
we do just want to say thank you so much. As far as our whole team, we were very excited about this episode. So we just want to say thank you so much. Your knowledge, your wisdom, your passion, your spirit. I felt it. I'm sure our viewers felt it. I'm sure Zach felt it. Like, I'm speaking for Zach. Zach felt it. Yeah, we just want to say thank you. And any last words from you, Zach?
No, I wanted to also say thank you to Dr. Jones for coming on, and thanks, Angie, for spearheading this one and putting this together. And also, Dr. Jones, was there anything you wanted to close with? We kind of just leave the floor open for you if there's anything.
Look, let me find something to tell y'all real quick. So one, I'm trying to get my Instagram up, because honestly, this is I'm maxed out on friends on Facebook, so you can follow my Facebook business page, but I would rather you follow me on Instagram at Purple Path by Dr. J. Because I am the Restorative Justice Chairwoman of the Cook County Southland Juvenile Justice Council, I've been awarded to provide restorative justice trainings from now until June 2022 for free. So if anyone is interested, follow me on Instagram. That's where I share a lot of my information. And then last but not least, I realized, my time is limited in many situations. So I used to send out thorough dissertation style emails, and people like, when I get the statistics behind the scene, like, ain't nobody reading this. So what I decided to do is pivot. That's the new word in the midst of this pandemic. Now I have a text community. So please feel free to text me at 708-578-7815. Again, that's 708-578-7815. And the reason why that's so important is that I'm giving you quick synopsis instead of long dissertations like, hey guys, I'm going live with my good people here at SSFS, or hey, if you want to sign up for training, because I'm only taking a certain amount of seats, you find out about that information first. All type of great things that are happening internally and externally throughout our community in the South Suburban Cook County area. That's where you will get like first dibs on knowing. If I know it, you know it second. So again, 708-578-7815. My Instagram is Purple Path by Dr. J, and I'm just glad to be here. And if you don't remember anything else I say, remember my mantra: journey not shared is a soul not healed.
I love that. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll be here again, same place and time with a different tea next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.